Hi everyone, I wanted to show you how I redesigned my glass cloche decoration that I've had for a while. This cloche I've got, it's like a big, if you wonder what a cloche is, it's a big glass dome that you put things inside for display. And for the last couple of years, I've just had some skulls stacked up on top of each other that I painted in this technique, which is where you put black paint on the plastic skull and then you wipe it off, and the black stains the plastic and gives it this nice sort of dark effect, as opposed to it being like just a bright cream coloured plastic skull. And I decided I wanted to redesign it and change what was inside. So what I'm doing here is just touching up. Basically what I've done is all the skulls that were inside it were all glued together with hot glue. So I've snapped those off from each other, and then I'm touching up paintwork where I've chipped paint off by removing the skulls. And also touching up the skull itself, because obviously where it was attached to the other skull, there was paint missing and stuff. So I just did the antiquing effect again, because I like how it looks, and I wanted a dark skull for this, because for what I've got planned, having the skull a darker colour will work better and it'll show up the details more. Whereas if I had like just the plain plastic skull, it's not going to look right, it's going to look weird, and it's not going to show up the details as much. So I repainted the base, because obviously I've removed stuff and chipped paint, because obviously as you take the hot glue off, it's going to bring the paint off with it. So here I'm just touching up with a layer of paint and drying it off with my little heat gun, which just makes the life a lot easier. Then I had to work out a way of getting the skull to sort of stand upright, because the way it sits at the minute, it hangs over the back too far for me to be able to put the glass dome back on. Here I was deciding whether I wanted to put two skulls back in or just the one. I did do the one in the end. But as you can see, when I put the dome on, it tilts the skull forward. And basically what I needed to do was lift up the back a little bit so I can glue it into position, so that when I take the glass on and off, or put the glass on, I should say, it'll go on perfectly fine without disturbing the skull inside. And obviously, to make sure the skull doesn't fall over or do something weird when I put the glass cover on, I need to glue it into position. So I needed it to be raised at the back. Now, originally I was going to use a bit of cardboard tube, and then I was umming and ahhing about, well, how am I going to disguise that so it doesn't look rubbish from behind? Because obviously with it being in a glass dome, you can get a full 360 view of it. And here I'm just testing the fit and making sure positioning's right. And in the end, I used that little foam pumpkin, because it lifted it up at the back of the skull just the right amount so it would sit right in the glass, and also it doesn't look really rubbish from the back. So I decided to use that, because originally I'd got a small skull stuck underneath to lift it up, but I wanted to use those for the Halloween wreath project, so I didn't want to use that, so I used this instead. As you can see here, I'm touching up paintwork and adding another layer of black just to darken the skull a little bit. And all you do, as you can see, I didn't do the inside because you don't need to. And all you do is you paint on black paint, and then you need like just a dry cloth or a tissue to wipe it off. And here I'm just waiting for my glue gun to warm up, which is always the most boring part. Even though it had been on for ages, it decided it didn't want to heat up quick enough. And I did actually put more hot glue on in the end, because this did actually pop off as I was fiddling about with the layout and everything. So just make sure you put plenty of glue on. And obviously by gluing the skull to that little pumpkin, and obviously putting a bit of glue on the chin of the skull to the base, it just fixes it into position, so it won't keep moving. I did have to move it ever so slightly, because as you can see here, it does overhang at the back, but I did fiddle about with it and get it so it was in the right position in the middle. Then I knew for this I wanted to do a dripping wax effect, and obviously this is why I needed the skull darker, so all that dripping wax would show up. Otherwise, as you can see, the skull at the back on my desk, that's the original colour it came as when I bought it from the shop, because I managed to get me another one this year for another project. And as you can see, if I'd have dripped wax on there, you'd have hardly seen it and it would have been pointless. Whereas by having it with this paint effect on and then dripping the wax on, I can see all the details and they'll all show up really well, which is what I wanted. And here what I'm doing is I've found the easy way to get the wax to melt, like off a candle, is to use my heat gun. So what I'm doing is, just out of view, I've got a candle and I'm just holding my heat gun so the end heats up and obviously so it drips down, as you can see. And this is actually like a large candle that's broke, and I'm using it for this to drip loads of wax, because obviously it dripped lots of wax quicker than using a small candle. And what I do is I drip it for a little bit, and then if you blow cold air on, obviously the wax sets quicker. So you'll see it obviously goes on clear, but then as it dries you see more of the white showing up. Sorry about my arm in the way there. And what I'm doing here now is sticking the candles on top. Now obviously what I had to do first of all was work out how tall I could get away with the candles being so they'd still fit under the glass dome. And I wanted like a sort of drippy candle effect. I wanted it to look like this is like a skull that's been used for ages. It's got loads of candles on, got loads of wax all over it. It's always been used as a candle holder. I wanted that sort of effect. Now obviously I realise that inside the glass dome I can't have the candles lit, but obviously I wouldn't want to do that because the skull's plastic anyway. Because obviously once the candles get down to skull level, they could start melting the plastic. But I'll show you how I got round, kind of got round that, and how I created a different. I could still get it to sort of light up and glow in the dark, put it that way. But I'll show you towards the end of the video how I got round that. So here what I'm doing, now I've worked out how tall my candles are and I've cut the ends off the candles to make them the right height. I'm using my heat gun to melt the base of the candles and stick them into place on the skull. Now, if you wanted the candles to be even more secure, it's probably worth actually putting a bit of wire through the bottom or something, because I'm not going to actually use these candles to burn once I've created the decoration. They're literally just going to be on display and left alone. But the way I did it is I just kept building up layers and layers of wax and just putting on more and more wax until it was quite solid and quite a decent lump of wax with all the candles in on the top. And what I'm doing here as well is I'm cutting the little candles that are going around. I'll cut the base at a slight angle so it fits with the skull. Now you could, if you wanted to, I suppose, drill holes in the skull and attach the candles into small holes in the top of the skull. But I didn't want to do that. I literally just used the wax to stick them in place. And then you'll see at some point I use my glue gun to actually hold the candles in place for long enough while I'm melting the wax to make them stick in place, because I did have it in a couple of positions where the candles just kept trying to slide off. And the trick here is to try not to touch the candles. Once you've got enough wax to hold them in place, try not to move them, because it's very easy to pop them back off until you've built up those layers of wax. And it's a case of building up layer on layer on layer of wax until you've got quite a lot of wax on the top of the skull that will hold the candles into position. And I just kept going until there was loads of wax dripped everywhere. With each candle I made sure I lit the candle and let it melt down a little bit as well, obviously while keeping an eye on it. And I also did this where I got a separate candle and lit it and just tilted it so the wax dripped, and I dripped plenty of wax down the candles because I wanted that sort of lovely like dribbly textured effect to the candles. And I kept going until it built up like this, and then what I did was I wrapped some micro LEDs around and put it in the glass dome. So that's it, that's how I created this decoration. Hope you enjoyed the video, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.